Hello everyone, and welcome to CTL's Education Professional Development Series. My name is Stephanie Shea. I'm Marketing Manager here at CTL. For those of you who are not familiar with CTL, we are headquartered in Portland, Oregon, and have been providing innovative IT solutions to education and government customers for over 26 years. We are a Google for Education partner, and some of our most popular products include our brands of ruggedized CTL and to-go PC laptops, convertibles, 2-in-1s, and tablets designed specifically for K-12 education. Over the last 2.5 years, we've worked with Google to introduce a line of CTL Chromebooks that have been recommended by PC Magazine as the best choice for Chromebooks in education. As part of our commitment to education, CTL is offering monthly professional development webinars for education customers. These webinars will include a variety of topics relevant to K-12 ed tech, but will have a big focus on Google Apps for Education and Chromebooks in the classroom. Today's webinar is Google Sites Basics, presented by Catherine Livick of our professional development partner, Education Service District 112 of Vancouver, Washington. However, before we get started, I'd like to go over a few items so you know how to participate in today's event. We've taken a screenshot of an example of the attendee interface. You should see something that looks like this on your own computer desktop in the upper right corner. You're listening in using your computer speaker system by default. If you would prefer to join over the phone, just select telephone in the audio pane and the dial-in information will be displayed. You will have the opportunity to submit text questions to today's presenter by typing your questions into the questions pane of the control panel. You may send in your questions at any time during the presentation. We'll collect these and address them during the Q&A session at the end of the presentation. If we run out of time, you'll be contacted by our sales representative to make sure all your questions are answered. Before we get started, I'd like to take a poll. I'm curious how familiar everyone is with Google Sites. So let me launch this poll, and you can indicate whether you have some experience, no experience, a lot. Maybe we've got an expert out there. I'll give you guys all a moment to fill this out. Looks like almost everyone's finished voting. Okay, a couple more seconds and I will show the results. We've got a good mix. Okay, I'll go ahead and close out the poll and share the results. We've got 13% no experience, 75% with some experience, and then 13% with a lot of experience. So that's good information for our presenter. I would now like to introduce Catherine Livick of our professional development partner, Education Service District 112 of Vancouver, Washington. Catherine is a Google certified trainer and Google certified administrator, and she's going to take you through an overview of Google Sites.
Hello.
I just switched it over to you, Catherine.
Thank you. All right. Hopefully you guys can see my slideshow there. Good morning. I'm Catherine, and I am an instructional technology coach and the professional development manager. I develop curriculum and teach teachers how to use these kinds of tools. And I work in a lot of different districts, so I see a lot of different kind of implementations and uses for this kind of stuff. This presentation is intended to focus on teachers using sites. I have used it with students, and I have seen it used with students. It does tend to have a bit of a learning curve for students, but if you're looking for just an overview of what sites is like and what it can do, this should still give you a pretty good idea of that, whether you're intending to use it for yourself or for students. And I was letting Stephanie know this morning that just this morning I also found out that they have a beta of a new version of Google Sites. So sometime in the future, And that literally means anytime. It could be, 3 months, or it could be a year from now, because with Google we never know. But there will be a significant change to the way sites looks and works. And I mean, I really, like I said, just found out about that this morning. So it may be that we will be doing another overview here in a few months about what the new sites looks like. But for now, we'll go through what it looks like currently and give you guys a few things to think about with regard to using this tool for your professional use. So I don't like to dive right into just the tool, because I think a lot of people do better when they start, begin with the end in mind and think about, why do I really need a website? Why do I want a website? Is it because everybody else has one, or because somebody said I have to? And sometimes that's the case. Sometimes you're told you need to have a website. And in some districts, people aren't given a lot more guidance than that. But fortunately, if you're in a district that uses Google Apps for Education, you have this tool available to you and built right in. And it is pretty handy and integrates pretty well with all of your other Google stuff. So it's definitely something to learn about. But really the major reason to have a website as a teacher is communication. Who do you need to communicate with, and what do you need to communicate? So I think the first thing to do is to consider your audience. A lot of the time the website is designed to communicate with parents. It can also be designed to communicate with students. There may be some other constituent group that you need to communicate with, or it may be that this is a way for your evaluator to kind of keep up on what you're doing. There's a lot of different uses, but most people are making a website to communicate information to parents and students when they're at home. So once you have your purpose in your audience, you want to think about exactly what should go on that site. And really the most important things are things like contact information. And yes, your school website hopefully should have that kind of stuff listed, but it never hurts to have it again on your own page. Grading policy and class expectations, depending on your school requirements and on the level, grade level which you teach, could be very important. You might have a syllabus in there too. Schedule and assignments. A lot of people really want to have a place to go where they can see what's going on a daily basis in the classroom. And if you don't have an LMS like Google Classroom or Canvas or Schoology or one of those, or if you're not using those, then this might be one way to do that. And beyond that, there's all kinds of stuff you can do. Teaching tools, things for your kids to click on and do, resources, additional stuff for them to kind of get beyond the textbook with content from your class, any kind of fun stuff. There's tons of things that you can think of, but if you start with the end in mind and start with communication, you're going to probably have a pretty good website that is fulfilling the purpose that you started out with. Something to think about is your district policy and your digital footprint. And what that means is just, once it's out there on the internet, everyone can see it and you can't take it back. Some of you probably know about the Wayback Machine, and if you haven't heard of that, I like to tell people about the Wayback Machine, and usually they get this look of horror, some of them, because we've all probably done things in the past that we wouldn't want necessarily to be public for a wide professional audience of our peers, and some folks have put those things, evidence of those things on the internet, and when you realize that there is a Wayback Machine, which is a place you can go online to find what any given website looked like at a moment in time, going back to the mid-90s, people kind of go, oh no, So if you're just starting out with like putting your own content on the web, it's just something to be aware of, that everything that's up there is, you can't bring it back. You can't reel it in. Once it's up, it's probably archived somewhere. It's probably been captured. Just know that and go forward knowing that you're going to make your professional impression on the internet be a good one. District policies vary widely with regard to, can I post pictures of students online? what kind of permission do I need to get to do that? How much personal information about myself as a teacher or person is allowed to be on my teacher page? So be sure you're familiar with your district's policies and rules about that. I've always been kind of a proponent of the ask forgiveness rather than permission philosophy in a lot of ways, but for this one I can kind of see the district's point. You can have, there's any number of free website building tools out there. You may have heard of Wix or Weebly, stuff like that, and those are good tools. But the district, their perspective is that you can put anything you want on that site. They have no control over it, and I could put any number of horrible, inappropriate things on a website and then say, and by the way, my name's Catherine Leivik and I'm a teacher at this school, and those things would be associated in the public eye, and the district would have a hard time getting a handle on that. Additionally, there are concerns with any kind of information that may somehow fall under confidential data rules or be subject to a public disclosure request. So if you work for a public school, that's definitely something to keep in mind. So that's just something to mention, to think about when you're choosing a website tool. And of course, we're looking at Google Sites, but a lot of the time people look at sites and look at other tools as well. So I just kind of wanted to mention that. And Google has all those great integrations of the other Google tools you're using, so I really do think it's the best choice for most people in a Google Apps school district. So, planning. When I do Google Sites classes in person, the first thing I do is pass out a pile of paper and pencils, and I roll out the whiteboard. And people kind of look at me funny because I generally do everything digitally, and I'm trying to encourage people to go more closer to paperless, and I don't do physical handouts for my classes unless I have a lot of requests for them. But in my experience, there is no better way to plan a website than on paper. I know it seems kind of strange, but I've been building websites for about 15 years, and I'm not going to say that I'm fantastic at it. I'm by no means a web designer, but I'd like to think I've learned a few things about usability. And if I begin with the end in mind, and I know that form follows function, and I draw it out on paper, it just makes a lot more sense to me. Now, everybody's brain works differently. I have also designed sites using concept mapping software like Inspiration or Lucidchart, and sometimes that can work too. But for me, there's just no substitute than having pieces of paper I can shuffle around and Post-it notes I can stick on, and I can draw arrows and do all this stuff. This picture on this slide is not my photo, but it's very similar to how mine look. Well, actually, it's a little bit fancier. I don't make mine look that pretty. I just try to make it so I know what links to what page and what main categories or pages I'm going to have within my site. So I guess the point of this is, don't be afraid to really take your time planning beforehand. And you don't have to write out all your content somewhere else, but get your skeleton of your site up. What do I need a page for? What do I need a separate page for? Does this thing go on its own page, or is it part of the main page? What kinds of things do you need to have on your site? And if you take the time to do that, I usually kind of make my students, and these are teachers in professional development classes about Google Sites, take at least half an hour to 45 minutes just with paper before I let them touch the Chromebooks. And it's pretty funny how they moan and roll their eyes exactly as much as middle school students did when I did similar things with them. They're like, but we have the Chromebooks. I'm like, nope, got to do this part first. And it just goes to show that we're all students, and we all have some similarities there. So you've done a little planning, you're thinking about the purpose and what kind of layout serves your purpose. Are you sharing pictures? Are you listing assignments? Are you blogging? There's all kinds of different things you could be doing. So you've got your little diagram, and you kind of know what pages you want, and that can flex and change as you create your page and your site. But there's some background and some vocabulary that you're going to want to have to start out with. The first thing is site versus page, and I tend to mess this up all the time myself. The site is the collection of pages that you have put together. So if I have Ms. Leivick's homeroom website, and then I have an individual page for English class, history class, and writing class, that's the difference between a site and a page. If you've been using Google apps for a while, you're probably using Chrome, and you've probably gotten kind of more familiar with tabbed browsing, but that's something that I find a lot of folks who have been using other browsers come in not really knowing. So if you're not familiar with that, knowing what a new tab is really handy. It's just another page, but it's in the same window. And Google likes to open everything in a new tab, so it's just good to know what that is about. When I say we're going to embed something, that means we're not just putting a link on a page that someone can click and go to, but we're actually embedding the content within the page. So, for instance, if I had a YouTube video embedded in this slide, I could just click on it right here and it would play in the slide, as opposed to a link to YouTube to view it. So that's what embedding is. The content area of the page is just the main big block of stuff on your page, and the navigation is going to be along the top or the side, and you can choose that. And that's how you get from one page to another. That's where your links are from Ms. Leivick's main page to Ms. Leivick's English class or whatever. You might also have a sidebar down the left side that your navigation may be there, or you may have other information there. So it's good to know sidebar as well. A theme is the collection of fonts and colors that give your page its particular look. And a template is a pre-created group of pages that you can use to start your site out if you don't want to start it from scratch. And all of that is completely up to you how you want to use it, if you want to start from scratch or not. So when you want to get started with this, first you have to find sites, and it's not too hard most of the time. It should be in your Waffle, which is your app launcher here. So if you go to google.com and you make sure you are signed in to your school domain, assuming Sites is available to you, it should be somewhere in here with a little icon like that, and it's going to open up my collection of sites. Now I have a lot in my training domain that I'm logged into here. If you have never made a site, obviously this is going to be kind of blank here, but I can see a lot of different sites in my domain, and I'm going to go and open up one of my sites, and it opens up in a new tab. So your main sites page here gives you the ability to create a new one or edit the ones you've already had. So this red Create button takes me to this page, and then I can choose a template. I can either start with a blank template, or I can browse the gallery. Now you can see that this has my domain name here. You might have a specific group of templates that your district has provided to you, or there might not be anything custom there. But if you want to go beyond what your school has provided, there are public templates, and you can look at them kind of in a general way, or you can go by category. Here's some education ones. I like this classroom site one, and I'm going to hit select, and it says that I have selected that classroom site. And now I have to give it a name. And down here it asks me about the site location, and it's automatically taking the name that I put in here for the name and giving that to the web address as well. So the URL is just the address you type into this omnibar up here when you want to get to a site. And there are some ways for your administrator to make it a little bit easier to get to than to type in sites.google.com/a/ and all your stuff there. But just something to keep in mind is that if people are typing it in, you would probably want to keep it simple. I've seen sites that had names like you know, really long, and then it puts hyphens in there and it gives you this ridiculously long name. So I really recommend trying to keep it simple. Just imagine that someone is going to have to type the whole thing in. They may not have to, but just try and have mercy on your users if you can. So I've selected this template and it has some themes in it. If I wanted to alter that further, I could go down here. To be perfectly honest, I usually stay out of these once I've selected a template because it kind of is going to change some things and not others, and then the colors won't hang together. So I kind of leave those alone, and then I can mess around with those options from within my site. And then I have some options. I can put my categories in, which is something that Google, when you Google search for something, it looks for these category tags. It also will give you more information if there are a lot of sites in your domain listed that you could list yours as middle school category so that an administrator looking through websites could find your middle school website quickly. And you can add a little description that would say assignments and information for Ms. Leivick's class at this school or something like that. But those are definitely optional. You don't have to do those. And so once I've got this all figured out, I'm going to hit Create. And it's going to create my site, and I'm going to have a group of pages from this template. So while it's loading that, I want to talk a little bit about doing a site from scratch as well. I think everybody's brain kind of works differently, but for me it's easier to do a site from scratch because I've been using this tool for about 4 years. And I have a lot of experience with creating new pages, doing the navigation, linking things together. It's very easy for me. When you first start out, you might want to start with a template like this and just start editing things just so that you can see how it hangs together once you have started it. Now, if we look at this template, it's got the name that I put in up here, and it's got a bunch of kind of placeholder text, and schadenfreude, which is a great vocabulary word. So they have Student of the Month section, Word of the Week, recent announcements, homework assignments. I could change any of this. Instead of Student of the Month, this could be Student of the Week, or it could be, you know, our unit of study for the moment, or whatever I wanted it to be. This site is set up with a navigation on the sidebar. I could change this so I had it across the top. But what they're showing me here is that I have these different pages down the side. There's a little bio, cute little picture, click here to read my biography, and so they've made an About Me page that links from there, and then a bunch more pages, and they've got a poll in there too. So if I want to edit this stuff, I can do a number of things. I'm going to start with just clicking the pencil up here. And that's going to show me how to edit. They've got a little tip here for me, which is cool, but I don't need that, so I can just delete it. Once I'm in here, this works like a word processor, this editor, and you can see across the top I have all of my basic tools. If I don't like 10 point and I want it to be bigger here, I can change the font there and the size. I can change the color. Oops, I changed the highlight color. I can change the actual text color. Well, that's not very pretty, but there it is. I can change the formatting. I can make a bulleted list here if I want to, or a numbered list. I can center it, change the justification. We don't have a ton of choices for fonts here because fonts are loaded as people load your page, so it's best to kind of keep it simple. Fancy fonts don't tend to come through very well on everyone's computer, and what you're seeking is uniformity. You want this to kind of look the same to almost anyone who views it, no matter whether they're on a Mac or a PC or a Chromebook or a phone. So we want to keep it kind of simple, and so you can choose from your kind of limited amount of fonts there, whichever ones appeal to you. So that's just editing text. I can type anything I want in here. and I can change my kind of not great choices about background colors. I'm just going to select the text I just typed, and if I want to make a link, I click this little link button, and when I hover over that, it shows me that I have a shortcut as well. So that could be Control or Command K that will bring up this little box that says, well, what do you want to link to? And I can link to a different page in my site, or I can link to an address outside that site. I can decide that I want that to open in a new window so that people will have my tab open to go back to afterwards. And I hit OK. And then you see it's showing me that I have a link there. I can change or remove the link. And I'm going to go save my page. One of the weirdest things about Google Sites, and one of the things that my guess is they're going to change with the new version, is that it's one of the few Google tools you have to hit save to save. If you're used to working in docs or sheets or slides, after a while you get kind of spoiled and you're like, wow, I never have to hit save and it saves automatically. Not so with Sites. It does save drafts of what you're doing, and so there have been many times when I have clicked out of what I was doing, not saved, and then went, oh no, and gone back in, and it says, oh, do you want to restore the draft you were working on? And I go, whew, thank goodness you did that. So it does kind of auto-save, but you really do need to click that save button. And you'll know if it needs saving because you're either going to see this edit pencil or you're going to see that big blue save button. And once I have my save button, I can click on these links and see what they do. See if I went to the right link. Looks like my link to Google is good, so I'm going to go back to this tab. And that's your basic text editing. Now, these little guys in here are set up as gadgets, which is, that's why they look kind of blank in this view. And this is one of the more confusing things about Google Sites, I think. A lot of the time, it acts like a what you see is what you get kind of editor. I type in the words, I click make it a link, and I can see it. But with this, these gadgets, which are little boxes of HTML code that kind of make things look different in the page, it doesn't really look like anything until I click the Save button and see what it looks like. So it's kind of confusing and kind of outside the scope of a quick webinar to go through exactly how that works. But just be aware that you can type everything excuse me, right into this text box, or you can insert any number of things, and this is where we get into embedding. So you can see we have a lot of options here. One of the first things that you're probably going to want to learn to insert under your Insert menu is an image. So you can upload an image from your website or from your computer, or if you know the address, the URL of an image, you can put it in here. And it will appear right there, just like anything else that you put in. We've done a link. A table of contents is exactly what it sounds like. It will link you down to different parts of the page. That's a really handy feature that actually exists in Google Docs. I tend to tell people to kind of stay away from it in Pages because there are better ways to organize things, but just to know it's there. Subpage listing just shows other pages that you have in your site. Again, something you're probably going to do in your navigation instead of in your main content area, so I don't usually use that. You can always put in a horizontal line if you need to break apart some parts of your page. Gadgets here. So recent posts and recently updated files are things that update as you change things within your site. They link to other tools like blog posts or files in a Drive folder that you've linked to this site. Some people like to use those, some people don't. You can insert a text box, which I'm typing in a text box now, but this would give me a little bit more of a contained area to type text in. An HTML box If you know anything about HTML code, you can do some fancy HTML code in here and it will show up. But if you do know something about HTML code, you may be disappointed to find out that Google Sites also disallows a whole bunch of HTML tags, and they don't work. It just says, oh, hey, yeah, I saved everything you did, but I stripped out all those tags that you just put in. So I'm not sure what the point is of having an HTML box when it won't let you do anything. But that's another one of those things I'm hoping they'll fix in the new version. That is not something that will bother you at all unless you're already kind of a power user with web design, and then it will frustrate the heck out of you. So just so you know, it's there. There is a gadget gallery here, and again, we're running into one of these things where this is a tool that is having a major upgrade in a few months, hopefully, and this gallery of gadgets and things that you can embed in your site, there's some really cool ones in here. But a lot of them are broken, and just to be aware that if you're using this with students, there are a ton of gadgets that embed slideshows of girls in bikinis and what have you into your website. And I absolutely guarantee you that if you have middle schoolers on up, they will find those within a millisecond of being in this gadget gallery. Don't ask me how I know that, but no, they'll find it, and they'll giggle and they'll freak out. And it's nothing really obscene, but it's not really school appropriate either, so just to be aware of that. There are some cool like weather widgets and things that you can put in here. You see some of them, they're broken. It says remove, but they haven't removed it. This fish one is pretty cute, actually. I can select this. Oh, and this one worked last week, and they might have just killed it. Well, this was cute. That's a bummer because it actually let you put a little fish tank in. You could tell them how many fish you wanted, what color you wanted them to be, and they would swim around on your page and be adorable. So some of the gadgets are more useful than others, but like I said, a lot of them are kind of deprecating, which means they're going bye-bye. So there are some gadgets that work in there, but you do have to do a little bit of combing through, because those are gadgets that weren't necessarily created by Google. They were uploaded by public users, and so there's really not a lot of Google oversight of what they are. So just be aware of that. If you know about Google Apps scripting, you can also insert a script into your page. You can insert one of your Google calendars in here, which is a very handy thing for teachers to do. So I'll insert, I have one called History Assignments, and I can decide how wide and high I want that calendar to be. I can decide what view I want it to default to. Let's see, and I can also display more than one calendar at a time if I want to. Let's see. So this will overlay both of these calendars onto the same page in different colors. So say I had a history class and I was putting my history assignments in there and those are blue. Let's say reading class is red and you know, something else is yellow. I can display them all together on the same calendar, color-coded for my students and parents. And this is indeed how I used to use it when I was a teacher. So you can see, like I said, it's a gadget. It doesn't really look like it's going to look, but when I click the Save button, I get a much better idea of what it's going to look like. Okay. So I don't have anything on these calendars, or this would be much more impressive, but events would show up here. I can click on the events, and then I can actually see the details of the events if I've set my calendar properly to allow public viewing of those events. So that's kind of a handy tool that a lot of teachers are interested in using. If I want to remove one of these little gadgets, I can click the X. That'll take this whole box out of here. I can center that on my page. I can go back in and edit it and add another calendar or delete one, change the title of it. I have a lot of different options here. Let's see. We can insert a chart. We can insert a Google Drive file. So if I have a document that I would like to embed into my page, like my class expectations, say I've got them typed out in Google Docs and they're formatted really nicely and I don't feel like retyping it into my website, I can go in, select a document, from my drive, and I can find all kinds of good stuff in here. I just select it, and I can decide whether I want a border or the title on there, hit save. Again, doesn't really show up in preview mode until I hit save. Okay, and as you can see, this has its own scroll bar within my page, so it's displaying this whole page here. That can be really handy depending on what you want to share. Anything you have in Google Docs format can be shared that way. You can also insert a Google drawing, a whole folder. So if there was a folder of assignments or something you wanted people to have access to and it's set for accessibility for the same people who can see the site, you can put that folder right in here and list the files. You could embed a Google form, which is could be a quiz or a poll or a request for volunteer help from parents. An image can be embedded from your drive, a slide presentation, which those can look really slick if you embed them into a site. And a lot of people use that as kind of a rotating a photo banner type of function in their site, or a spreadsheet or a video. And if I want to put a video in, it looks for videos in my drive, but I have other ways to put in just YouTube videos as well. And that's down here, and it'll actually ask for the URL of the video, so you do have to go and find it ahead of time, and then it will embed it right into your page. Google Hangouts, if you have that enabled in your district, you could have a Hangout button right in your site. You can embed a Google map, which is really kind of a cool thing to do. So you can see from, we spent a long time just in this insert menu, and that's where we get all of our good stuff. Anything I want to embed and stick into my page, I'm going to go to the insert menu and find it in there. And there's any number of ways to set up your page, but Google sites are designed to have docs and things embedded in them, so they do look pretty good once you have the hang of formatting it the way you would like to format it. Speaking of formatting, this format menu gives you a few more text options. You can insert a table into your Google document. They are frankly not very pretty, but they can be useful. You can, if you know a little bit about HTML, you can play with the HTML and change how the borders look, but most people are not going to bother with that. You can use a table to kind of organize a layout of stuff, though. You do have choices for layout of your whole page. So you can see this one gives us a little diagram. It's 2 columns, and she just kind of has changed the size of the left column, and she has a header and a footer. So if I scroll down, oops, there's my header area up here, my content area, and then there's a little bit of a footer down there. I can change that in my layout menu. It might or might not change how it looks depending on how she has this set up as a template. If I had set this up from scratch, it would change a lot of things when I click those buttons. And you do have some help files, and don't be afraid to ever go there if you need to. And also don't be afraid to go ahead and save everything. It'll warn you if you decide not to save. Okay. So one of the things that is a little bit less intuitive, I think, for people getting started is the whole idea of navigation in Google Sites. Now, I would expect that when I'm in editing mode, I can figure out how to link things to other pages just manually like I did here. And if I have more than one page in my site, I could just keep linking out to those pages. But Google Sites does have a navigation feature. The problem is it's not under this editing button. It lives under this little gear. And you're going to want to be aware of this. There's a lot of stuff in here. So one of the hardest things to remember, and even for me, and I've been using this for a very long time, is do I want to edit the site layout or manage the site? There's a lot of different objects that you can do under both. editing the site layout is actually where you get to your navigation. So if I wanted to edit the header of my site, I can click here. I can turn that on and off so you can see which ones are selected. If I want to have a horizontal navigation tab here, if I click that, it adds it in. You can barely see it except when I hover over there. Click to edit horizontal navigation. Now, this page has a sidebar that has a manual navigation menu on it, but say I have a bunch of pages in my site and I just want to start adding them and have them all show up as tabs across the top. I click Add Page, and then I go find the page that I want to add, and I hit OK. And I hit OK one more time. And now I have a tab up here for extra credit. Well, let's say I want homework assignments to be up there too. I go to this list, I click Add Page, I go find homework assignments, I hit OK. Let's say I want homework assignments to be the first thing. I make sure that's selected, and then I move it up with this little arrow, and I hit OK. And now when I hit Close, we'll see what that's going to look like. So if I didn't want any of this over here and I wanted to get rid of this sidebar, I could have it navigate for me by creating these buttons. And when I click on that, it takes me to that page for extra credit. So now I'm editing a different page if I click this pencil. If there's a page that I haven't made yet and I want to create a new one, this little plus piece of paper here is my Create Page button. And it will ask me to go ahead and name it. And it's going to ask for a template. Usually you just want it to be web page. There are some other options, but that one's usually the easiest to start with. Location is not too important because it's still going to be linked to where you tell it to be linked to. But after you get into kind of messing around with your site, you may decide that you want your sites to be nested or your pages to be nested under other pages, or you may not. I'm just going to leave mine at the top level. Okay, so here's my new stuff page. There's nothing here except for this sidebar that is part of the template and my navigation that I enabled up here. Whoops. And now it has me popped right into editing this page. And now I can add some things to it. I could add an image, I could add an embedded document, whatever I want to do. So I'm going to save it. Now, something that is kind of weird, comments down here. As a public school teacher, I really don't want the ability for random people to put comments on my web page because then they can type whatever they want in there and it's on my page. So I want to disable that. That is under this little gear and it's under page settings. And I have to go in here and say, nope, I don't want comments at all. I highly recommend that you go and find that because it's not good when anyone who wants to comment can comment. Okay. So if you don't like the looks of the templates in the gallery, or if you don't want to create yours from scratch, you can go out to some of the outside template creation sites and get some help with designing a page. Canva is a free site that is really helpful for this kind of stuff, and for some reason it decided to log me out. It's not happy with me right now, but you can see that it's got some pretty fancy designs here, and I highly recommend checking it out. You can log in with your Google account, so if you're logged in, you can connect it to that, which is a pretty cool thing because then you don't have another set of passwords and usernames to remember. And I can create a new design, and they have Facebook covers, they have all these different sizes and outlines for all these different types of things. You can create a website page, you can take a lot of their graphics and just pop them right into a website background. I've created site headers. You can see my Google Sites for Educators banner is there, and it looks like this when I embed it in a Google site. This is by no means necessary, but if you want to kind of raise your game a little with the images on your site and you have not, you're not a Photoshop user, then this is a really cool tool to know about. So I just wanted to show you guys that. There's also a site called Behance that shows, has a ton of different images and website designs you can use. This one is actually a Photoshop document that you can use as a background for a website. So if you do use Photoshop, this can be kind of a handy thing. So you can do a lot of things to kind of raise your game with the images and make it look really pretty. But you know, really simple is best. Less is more, especially if you're not a designer. And I'm only sort of a designer, so I'm guilty of making my sites a bit cluttered sometimes. But just when you're thinking about how your site looks, think usability first. And just imagine that you're a parent or somebody coming there who has no idea where everything is or what could be there. Make it as easy for them to use as you possibly can. So just make sure that your aesthetics enhance your usability. So that's the basics of how to get some things into your website. The next thing that we need to know about is how do we share this site with people. And you can see here that it says private to only me. This little blue share button should look pretty similar to your other Google Apps buttons. And I know that nobody else in the world can see this website except for you guys via GoToWebinar unless I click that button. So you need to think about who you're sharing with and what you're allowed to do. Again, we're kind of talking about the policy. There are some districts that do not permit people to share websites outside of their district. So as a teacher, you could make a website that students who are logged into your district Google account could see. But if you want a website to be public, which is kind of the point of a website, you are going to need to make sure that that's permitted in your domain, and they can make it so that just teachers can have public websites, but students can't. Frequently, that's a good option so that students can create portfolios of work and make Google sites for that, but they're only visible to logged-in users in the domain, the district, not to the public, because that's kind of considered sensitive information. So when a site is public, it means that anyone who is not logged into Google services for your district can see it. Anyone in the whole world, and again going back to the idea of the Wayback Machine and the fact that everything is archived, once it's out there, it's out there. So be aware when you click that button that you need to be sure it's ready for prime time. In my philosophy, we restrict as little as possible, but there may be times when you need to have things that are only for logged-in users. And so, for instance, if I wanted to embed a Google Doc and I want the rest of my site to be public, but I want that doc only visible to students, I can just make sure that the settings on that Google Doc are in my district only or for shared with specific students that are in my classes. So you do have a few options there, even with a fully public website, to restrict kind of what you're doing public-wise. So if I wanted this one to go public, I'm just going to click this little guy, and I'm going to be able to give permission similar to how I would with a doc, and I can make it public on the web, and then anyone can find it. And that's usually your last step after you've created the basics of your website. So that's the very basics of it. And as you can see, there's a ton of information here. There's a lot to learn, and I think the best way is to just kind of get in and dig around, play around with it. If you can find a class and take a class, that's a great thing to do. And I like to run my classes with about 3 hours of instruction and 3 hours of lab so that people get a chance to sit with me and ask questions and kind of really have a product that they're done with when they leave. So if you can find a class where they give you some work time, I'd highly recommend that if you want to get started playing around with Google Sites. So if there are any questions, I would be happy to try and answer.
Oh, hi, Catherine. It's Stephanie again. Thanks so much for that. It looks like a lot of really neat things you can do in there. And since you were just talking a little bit about privacy settings, I noticed, one of the options was you can log in without a password. So then does that mean you can password protect a site?
You can't really password protect a site except for people who have Google accounts.
Okay.
And this is kind of a frequent question, like, well, can I just give all my parents a password for the site? Because I think on Wix or Weebly or one of those, you can do that. Google Sites uses Google logins, just like every other Google tool, to determine who has access to what. So if every parent in your classroom has their own Gmail account, and you want to get a list of parent Gmail accounts, and then you want to put those in here just like you would with a document, you could do that. I could make this so it's private or only viewable within my district, and then the exceptions to that would be addresses that I put in here. But that's as close as we get to password protecting a website in Google Sites.
Okay, that's good to know though, in case. We also had someone referring to your example website and wanted to see where is the new stuff page on the navigation bar. So I think.
That is a really good question. I didn't put it in there yet, so so that's why you don't see it. There is such a thing as automatic navigation. Honestly, for me, it's more confusing than it is useful, but some people really like it. So if I wanted that new stuff page to show up here, I could just go into my edit site layout. I could click on that navigation bar, and then I would add new stuff. Hit OK. And there it is. Okay. Yeah, and there is a setting in here for automatic navigation, which I believe is under the Manage Site. And I think it shows up in here somewhere. It's moved a couple of times, so I might have to go hunt around for it. But there is a way to tell it, hey, any page I create, just stick it in the navigation for me, and it will do that. I just personally feel like it's better for me to add those sites because, say, under new stuff I have 5 subpages. I don't want them all cluttering up my navigation bar, but I can make it so that they will drop down underneath new stuff, which is kind of a cool thing I can show you really quickly. So I'm going to edit this horizontal navigation. And let's say I want extra credit and new stuff to drop down when I hover over homework assignments. I'm just going to do that. I'm just going to click these over so that they're nudged in under homework assignments. And in a minute, it will refresh itself. And now, if I close that, I have a drop-down menu. So I like to keep things real organized. So for me, the automatic navigation is not a great thing.
Yeah, that's neat. I like the drop down actually because there can be a lot of subcategories.
That's handy.
You might have actually already gone over this. I just want to confirm that icon next to the pencil, that's add a new web page. Is that correct?
That's
Create
create a new
page.
page for my site, yeah, and this
Okay.
is to edit the page I'm currently on.
And when you add the page, because I noticed when you're doing your navigation, it shows the list of pages to choose from the sitemap. So when you create a page, it automatically adds it to that list. Is that correct?
It adds it to the site, and so
Okay.
yes, it does know that I can choose from that. It just doesn't necessarily automatically add it to the navigation. And if I need a list of pages in my site, I can go to this Manage Site option. These menus are ugly, and I do hope that they will make them a little more user-friendly with this next iteration of sites. So I have an item over here called Pages, and this is all the pages in this site. Some of them are nested under one another in
Okay.
the navigation, yeah. But you can see that it doesn't necessarily show the way I have the navigation set up either in this map because new stuff was under homework, and that doesn't look like that in this map. So, it's just so you can see your list of pages.
Okay, great. Yeah, that was just more for me because you know, not being a web person so much, it's nice to see something where you can create this kind of stuff, not really knowing that much about how to create websites.
Sure,
um,
sure.
we have another question from Ramiro. If you copy a page and you subcategory to a different list, how do you unlink the page? So when you change one, it does not change the other. Oh, that's a good question.
So copy a page and
And
so within
subcategory.
the web, are you talking about putting the page at the, like where I put the page when I copy it?
I
Or are we talking
believe
about navigation? I'm sorry, I know it's
so. I think he's saying, yeah, if you want to copy something, you know, for the template or something of that page, and it's gonna be under a different category, making sure that it doesn't change the original page you copied. I think that's the
and
question.
it shouldn't. So I'm just going to call this one new stuff 2 or whatever. Um, Again, it's not going to show up here because I haven't put it in my navigation. I hope that I'm addressing what you're asking because it's kind of hard for me to tell that, like, let's see, I'll edit it so I can see the
I'll see
difference here.
if he adds to the question. Ramiro, be
Yeah.
sure and tell us if we're answering your question completely.
Yeah, so now if I go in and I um, edit my layout and I want to add that to my navigation, I can add the new stuff to page, and it shouldn't have changed anything with new stuff here.
Because it's kind of like if you make a copy of a Google Doc, you're not going to change the original Google Doc.
Yeah, so here's new stuff, and here's new stuff too that I just kind of typed that pile of text into. So yeah, it should, if you just copy it, it shouldn't change it. As far as where it actually puts it in the site map, that's what you have to tell it when you create the page, just like you would when you copy or create a page. Whoops, you tell it where you want it to go. So I could say I want it under the class announcements page, and I could choose that here. But that still doesn't affect the navigation until I tell it where to put it,
Okay.
unless I have automatic on. So.
I think that makes sense. Ramiro, be sure and type in if you did have a further question. I think we're going to get ready to put a wrap on today's session where we're aware that everyone has busy schedules, so we don't want to keep you over time. But I think this has been a great introduction, and I agree with you, Catherine, that the best way is probably just getting in there and experimenting and learning what you can do.
Yeah, don't be afraid to go in there and make it ugly, because you don't have to click this little button and make it public until you want to. It can be ugly as heck, and you can go in here and preview page as viewer, which really gives you more of an idea of what it looks like to someone else.
Mm-hmm.
So under your little sprocket there, preview page as viewer. And you can do that, then you can go back and change it, save those, preview it, and you can do that again and again until you're ready to share. So go get your hands dirty and have some fun with it.
Sounds awesome. Thank you so much, Catherine, for your presentation today. And this is being recorded. Someone asked earlier. We have a site. I will take the screen back so I can show you guys the link. Or if it's not on there, I'll read it to you. Okay. Yes, it's on the bottom here. It's been recorded, will be provided within 48 hours on ctl.info/webinars. And not only is this one on there, but we've been recording every single one, so we're getting a really nice library with a lot of interesting topics. I encourage you to check it out. If you have any other questions, please contact me at the email you see on the screen. Also, Catherine's contact info is up there. When you leave today's webinar, you'll receive a survey on the presentation. We'd appreciate it if you would complete that and provide your feedback. On behalf of CTL and our presenters, thanks everyone for joining us today, and hope you have a great rest of your day.